Hello everyone, welcome. So today we're going to do a little tutorial just to kind of start talking a little bit more about organic modeling. This is going to be a basic modeling tutorial. I'm going to do a little bit of I'm going to do a rubber ducky. So this is not going to be the most complicated, but it's going to kind of show you how to use subdivision surfaces, which are sub-Ds in Rhino 3D. So first thing we want to do is create a primitive shape that is kind of, an approximation of how our duck is going to look. The duck body, and then we'll add some eyes and do the beak and then little feet on the duck as well. And then we're going to add some materials and do some rendering and maybe even put it in a pond or something like that. It might be kind of fun. So let's go ahead and get started. So I am using the default template that we always set up on my channel. We're doing millimeters. And if you're not in millimeters, go File, New ... and open up a millimeter template. And then just always, check that box, millimeters, and so on, just to start your Rhino always in the metric system. Okay, and then I've got my object snaps over here. These are the ones I'm using right now. And let's get started. So we're going to be using subdivision surfaces. And yeah, we could start off with a primitive, but I feel like with the primitive shape, we've got more work to do. So since this is going to be a symmetrical object, I'm going to kind of create a lofted segmented subdivision of what I think a rubber ducky would kind of look like. So let's go ahead and do that first. All right, so first drawing from the top view, the shape of our creature. So I'm going to do a oval, this tool right here, or an ellipse, I guess is what it's called. And then I'm going to start with 0, enter, and I'm going to drag it out. Turn my grid snap on for the moment just so it stays locked in to right about there, and that's going to be my halfway point. And then I'm going to just drag it out to about there. So that's going to be kind of my bottom segment. And then I'm going to do another segment because it's going to kind of have like an arced out, almost spherical kind of quality to it. So I'm going to hold down Alt and then Shift and the scale tool, and that will make a copy of that. So Alt, if you're using a PC, if you're using a Mac, I believe it's the Option button, will make a duplicate of that object. Okay, and then I'm going to make a smaller one as well. So Alt, Shift, and scale in this one here. I'm going to move this one kind of back in space. All right. And then I'm going to also just use Alt or Option again and move this one over kind of more towards the front. So that's going to be like the neck. And then we'll add like a sphere later on for the head. So let me switch to perspective. And I'm going to kind of move these up in space. So this is my bottom one. Then I'm going to move this one up. Just grab it to there. And then I'm going to move this one above it. And then I'm going to move this one above that one. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to use is loft. So I'm going to loft this one to this one to this one and this one. Well, let's just see what happens when I select them all. No, doesn't work, right? Didn't think so. Okay, so I'm going to loft these two together like that. And I'm going to do a loose loft. Okay. And then I want to loft this one to the back one first. Or let's just do the front one. So loft this one to this one. Okay. And then we'll just add this shape in later. I don't need that one. Okay, so this is where the head's going to come in. All right, now I'm going to join these two together. Then I'm going to cap them. So now I've just got this object here, which is what we would call a NURBS-based object. So this is going to be a closed poly surface. If I look at my properties here, closed solid poly surface. So that is what type of object we would use if we were going to be doing architecture or anything like that's more geometric. We want to now change this into something that's going to be a little bit more organic. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and I'm going to go quad remesh, enter, and then I'm going to set a target count of maybe 50. So this is how many subdivisions are going to occur on my sub-D object. And then I'm going to set symmetry on the y-axis so that there's the same amount of subdivisions on the left side as the right side. Okay, and then I'm going to hit OK. Then I'm going to take this object here, I'm going to put it on a new layer. So grab my layers here, and I'm going to right click and change object layer, and then I'm going to hide this one. All right. So now what we have here is a subdivided object that is manipulatable so that I can actually create more of my duck shape. So with the head shape up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move it up a little bit, and I'm going to extrude it. Oh yeah, that looks just like a duck face. No, it doesn't. It's fine though. And then I'm going to quad remesh this. And I don't need 50. I need like 10 subdivisions for this one. All right. And then I'm going to use the Y again, and all of this is going to stay the same. All right. And then I'm going to hide this. Change object layer. Great. So now I want these objects to relate to each other. So we're going to use a new command here. I can save these curves, or I can get rid of them. I don't even need them anymore. But you can put those on another layer called curves too. Sometimes that's a good way to do it, especially if you're doing architecturals. A lot of times those curves will be like your floor plan or something. You want to put those on a layer and hide them just in case you change something later. You can come back and fix it. All right, so because I have the same symmetry, and because these objects are close to each other, I can actually go to my sub-D tools here, grab my face selection tool, and I'm going to just delete maybe, I'm going to delete these two faces up here. Delete two of those. And then I'm going to delete these two back faces. So shift to select two of them. Okay. And then I'm going to exit out of my sub-object selection by clicking on this right here. So now I can select the whole thing. If you're ever not capable of selecting the whole thing, that means you've got some sort of sub-object selected here, and you can cancel out of it by just clicking on that. All right. The head seems a little bit small, so I'm going to actually bump it up. Just shift and hold onto that, pull that out so that I've got a little bit bigger head. Maybe it looks a little too deep, so I'm going to move just that one back. And then I'm going to move it over the top of the object. All right. And next what we're going to do is we're going to bridge these two together. Actually, still looks a little out of scale to me. I want this to be kind of cartoony, and so usually that means bigger heads, right? Okay, move it forward a little bit just so it's in a nice alignment. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to edge selection here and double click on that. And I'm going to shift and kind of bring in the neck, this part a little bit, just to kind of, and a lot of this stuff is going to be just being creative with the shapes. Just trying to see how they're going to fit together, because I'm going to bridge these two together. I don't want it to be some funky transition. So next, I'm going to use the bridge command. You can just type the word bridge, or we can find it right here. So with this, the edge selection turned on, I can double click here and hit enter, and double click here and hit enter, and it's going to bridge those two sections together. All right. Very cool. So, and then I'm going to hit enter one more time. You can also change the amount of segments that are between it. So like if you had more detail or whatever, you can bump these up and it'll create more segments. See how that works? I only need one though for my purposes. And I can kind of change the straightness a little bit. Okay. All right, so far so good. Next step, I want to kind of peek up the duck tail here. So I'm going to I go to my vertice selection tool here and click on this vertice here, and I'm going to pull this up a little bit like that. Okay. And I might rotate it back and pull it this way some. Okay. Awesome. So next we want to maybe change the shape of this a little bit. I'm going to grab this vertice and kind of pull it back, kind of changing the profile of it somewhat. And maybe I'll even squish in these two. So shift select and kind of pull them in a little bit. And then the top up here, maybe puff it up. So just kind of, you're just playing with the shape of it. So to get it how you think it's going to look best. All right. And then I think that the whole thing maybe needs to be a little bit more scaled in. So I'm going to close out of this, click on this, and then just kind of pull this whole section in here. And then I might even need to, I can Control Shift or Command Shift click if you have a Mac, double click on, or select these right here, maybe delete them. I don't know how thick of a neck a duck has, right? Maybe pull this down a little bit. And then maybe pull this area back a little bit. Oh, and I forgot to say that if you don't have your soft selection set the same way mine is, so if I select an object, like if I select this here and go to soft select, you can see that I need to, if I have it scaled way down, it's going to make dramatic effects to just one part. If I have it way big, it's going to kind of affect the whole, more of the subdivisions. All right, so far so good. Next step is to go ahead and add eyes and a beak to this. So a duck beak is a little bit flatter, so I'm going to actually just draw the shape of what I think a duck beak should kind of look like coming off of this thing. And I'm going to do it with another ellipse. So go back to standard here, ellipse, and right about there, this way, kind of pull it out. All right, so yeah, that doesn't look like a duck beak, right? But the reason for that is because we don't have enough control points. I can't really square this thing off. Control points are these little points on here where I can grab just, this part here. So if I shift and select these two control points, and then I kind of can kind of play with this shape here, right? That looks a little bit more beak-like. You can also rebuild it to add more control points. So if I got 12 control points there, now that there's more of them, I can really control the curve of the shape here. So that's actually kind of the way I want it. All right, and then I can go back to perspective. Whoops, what happened? I snapped onto the face there. That's what happened. So that's a good life lesson for you. If you snap onto the face, it does weird things like that. So let me go ahead and just close this out, go back to a top view. Let's redo that one more time. So again, ellipse, but this I'm going to just draw it at this point right here and not let it snap. So I'm going to stay far away because I don't want it to snap onto this object. I'm even going to move it again away from it. Let's check it in perspective. Yes, it's nice and flat. Good. Okay, again, I can select these points, scale it out a little bit, rebuild. 12, wonderful. And then I can maybe shift and left to right select to grab these control points and kind of make it a little bit fatter. Okay, that's a good shape. Next, back to perspective. Z, enter, S, enter. We'll zoom in on the selected object. And I'm going to scale it up just a little bit. And then quad remesh, and I'm going to use 10 again and Y symmetry. Okay, click on this, delete. All right. And then I'm going to Control Shift click on these two and kind of pull that up and make a smaller sub D tools. Make it smaller here. Just tiny so that I can inflate just this part here. Okay. And then Control Shift click on this face here, and I want to pull that back a little bit. Control Shift double click, move these forward, up. All right. And then I'm going to hit Alt or Option if you have a Mac and copy it. And then I'm going to Control Shift click on this point down here and kind of give it a little bit of like a lower chin area. I got to look at some images of rubber duckies to see how that mouth works. Okay, all right, let's see what you got going on here. So this is what we're looking at. So I'm going to go ahead and select these two lines here, and I'm going to go sub decrease. And I'm going to go from constant weight here. I'm going to just do 100 for a nice heavy crease. And pull it up, up, up. And then I'm going to kind of scale those two. No, can't scale those in the way I want. Yeah, it's starting to look a little bit better though. And then maybe I'll add an edge loop. So when you need more detail in an area, you add an edge loop. So I believe that's insert edge loop is right there. There you go. And if I do it again, there we go. So I'm just adding edge loop. So that's insert edge loop command, and you just double click on an edge. Like if I double click on this edge, you can see it adds an edge loop in between it. Okay. And if you're having problems, maybe your grid snap is bothering you, you can turn it off there. All right. And then the one that I'm looking at, it looks like it's got a tongue sticking out, which I kind of like. I can kind of dig that. So I'm going to actually just copy this again and make this one into a tongue. So I'm going to go Alt and then move it up. Or Option, of course, if you've got a Mac. I don't need to keep saying that, I don't think, but I'm going to anyway. So and then I'm going to scale it in. Doesn't that look kind of like a tongue? Yeah, that works. All right. Then I'm going to push this one down on top a little bit more. And I'll pull up these back two edges right here. So this is, you know, all just kind of being creative with it at this point. A little too much maybe. Look at how the seam looks right there. Cool. So next, move these into place on the face. All right, so I want to start changing some of the shape of this thing. I'm going to actually come through here and maybe it's a little too big on it. No, it's probably fine actually. Is it like too big? I don't know. Anyway, let's see. Maybe I'll scale it. Push it back in a little bit further. Too much. scale it. Okay, cool. So next I'm going to grab, I want to actually modify the shape of this whole thing a little bit. So I'm going to turn symmetry on for my sub D here. So the way you do that is you go up here and click right here. This is reflect sub D object. You click on it and then you can use your snap and kind of draw out to create a reflection plane. Enter. And then whatever I do on one side, it'll do on the other. So if I control shift click and grab on this and scale it down, it does it to the other side. So I'm trying to round this face off. And you get good at kind of seeing how these edges work to kind of modify the whole thing as you're playing with it. It's an art into itself. So okay, and then I'm going to control shift click and grab this whole thing and try to move it back a little bit and see what happens here. And then grab this spot here, kind of move it up, arch the duck back. All right, cool. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to add like a little tuft of weird hair on the top here. So I'm going to do that by doing a few sub D cones. So just like this, whoops, Z, enter, S, enter. And so with a sub D cone, I've got mine set right now with solid yes. These are all my points here. 2 points, 3 points, tangent, blah, blah, vertical faces, 4, 4. So you want to just kind of copy those settings, make sure that if it's not set up that way already by default, you've got them kind of copied that way. So I'm going to delete this one. And then I'm going to pancake this in. I'm going to grab this top one, control shift click, and kind of move it a little bit to the side. Then I'm going to mirror it over to the other side. Okay. And then I'm going to do one more cone. And then I'm going to move this into the center here. Whoop, just like that. All right, and just kind of layering them on top of each other. Control shift double click, scale it in. Delete this one, mirror this one over. And then I'm going to Boolean union them together. Okay, and then I'm going to quad remesh them again with maybe 20 all sub D. And move this over. Okay, delete this. And that just kind of smoothed it all into one. And then I'm going to turn my symmetry on this thing here too. Click here to there, enter. All right, and then I'm going to click on this and move it. Oops, actually, let me double shift click on that. Scale this in so it's almost pointy, and then move it that way. Okay. Control shift click on this, kind of pull it up a little bit. And then I'm going to control shift click on that and kind of pop it out a little bit more. Okay, so let's now take this, rotate it. and move it over on top of the head. So I'll go to a top view here, move it this way, move it this way, maybe go move and click here to there so it's centered. And it's probably going to be like, well, no, we got lucky. It's actually on top of the head, which surprises me actually. But if yours isn't, you just got to move it back up. And then I'm going to rotate it. Push it back into the head. Okay. And I'm going to maybe click this face here and kind of like that. And push it down a little bit like that. Click here and kind of pull it out. And let's look at it in rendered so we can see how it kind of fits together. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove the symmetry from everything. So if I just right click on this, click on this and this, enter, it gives me no more symmetry. I've got a little duck head with some hair on top. Now, I think I'm done with the sub D process. So I'm going to turn it back into a NURBS based object, but I'm going to actually copy and paste this to the clipboard. So I've still got this. So I'm going to select the whole thing, go Control X or Control C to copy it to the clipboard, Control V, create a new layer down here, call it Sub Ds, and then change this object layer, turn it off, Control V, brings this back, and then I'm going to go ahead and Boolean union this whole thing together using the command Boolean union, or just go to standard here, Boolean union. And this is going to change it into a NURBS based object like that. Okay. All one piece. Next, I want to put a little, put like facial features on it and then wings, and we'll call it a day. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll do the wings before I change it to back to a sub D, because I can use this. So actually, let's go ahead and undo the Boolean union here. I can kind of play with these as wings almost too. So if I Alt, move this over here, rotate this way, okay, and then I'm just going to kind of try to line it up here. But I want to modify this so it doesn't look exactly the same. So if I double click on this edge loop and delete it, it changes the shape of it a little bit. Actually, no. Let me add another edge loop, actually. So click on that, and then add another edge loop. Go to Sub D Tools, Insert Edge Loop. I want to do one here, just like that. And then I can grab this here and kind of pull, and then I can twist this way. And then make sure I don't deselect it, because I've got the arrow going the right direction now to kind of pull it the direction I want. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to grab this little edge here. Oops. Pull it out. Up. Oops. You don't want it to wrap underneath itself like that. That's bad. Out. Maybe I gotta delete that edge loop. Rotate it. Pull it down a little bit this way, up a little bit that way. Okay. And then I actually don't want any of this stuff underneath. I almost want it just to be that one side. So let me isolate this. So if isolate, I can click on the center mouse wheel, hold down this, and hold down the left click button, and then go to this one right here, isolate. So Z enter, S enter. So I'm focusing on just working on this. And I kind of want to get rid of this bottom, or maybe shrink it and kind of bring it up a little. So let's see what I can do here. Let's go to face selection, kind of pull this up. Not too much. Control Shift. Actually, switch over to edge selection. Can't edge select. And delete that one. Maybe delete that one. Pull this up a little bit. Okay. Select all of these ones and kind of pull them down. All right, so that's looking a little bit more like a wing. Okay, bring it back. Now we'll cancel out of all of our selection here, and let's scale it. Kind of change the scale, how it works. Pull it back into space here. Maybe pull it out a little bit this way. Rotate it back this way. Mirror it over to the other side. Let's look at it in rendered. Okay, maybe up a little bit on these wings. All right, so next what I want to do is I want to Boolean union together the hair, or the feathers on the top of the head, the body, and the two wings. I'm going to leave the beak separate for now. So select all of this, Boolean union. Okay. Once that's done, what we want to do, it's all one piece there, is we're going to quad remesh this whole object with a target count of 2000. Okay. So looking at the sub D now, we have kind of a smoother transition. Oh, I forgot to do sub D. Quad remesh, make sure sub D is selected, Y symmetry 2000. Okay. So now looking at this, we've got a smoother transition between the wings and the body, and it just kind of smoothed everything out nicely. So yeah, hopefully yours looks something kind of similar to this. And now we're ready to go back over and start working on the face. All right, so I just took the liberty to play around a little bit more with the mesh. We've still got it all in sub Ds, and that's great. So I'm going to now add a face to it. So what we want to do if we're going to add faces, is probably save this sub-D just in case we have to come back to it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a Control-C copy of it, and then go to my layers, and under my sub-D layers, I'm going to change object layer. Okay, and then I'll go Control-V just to bring it back. So I've always got a duplicate of my sub-D object because you're not going to be able to go back to it. So now let's make a face. So I'm going to go to a front view here, and I'm going to make kind of a sinister duck face. Why not, right? So instead of having a cute rubber ducky, we'll have one that seems like it's got some wrath to it. So how do we do that? We go to our standard tools here, and we draw a line. And I'm going to turn ortho off just so I can kind of be free about it. A little diagonal here. Doesn't really matter the size. And then I'm going to go with a curve. And this control point curve, you just click where you want it to start. And then you click a few times just to kind of create the bend the way you want. I might have clicked one too many times, but I'm going to move that over there. Maybe I'll pull this one down. Join it all together. And then I'm going to actually go ahead and hit Alt, Shift, and click on this to kind of make a duplicate of it. And then I'm going to move it from here, like maybe down to there. And then I'm going to push it back just a little bit along this line here. So move again from this point. And now I'm going to make sure that on my selection tool here, I've got my near turned on, because then it'll snap to this no matter where I put it, so I can make sure it's right on that line. Great. And then I'm going to explode this. Actually, let's go ahead and fix this first. I don't like this curve here, so let's pump these up here. That's a little better. Okay. And then maybe I'll pull this little line this way, just keeping the near on, because if it's not snapped to it, it's going to be a problem. Okay, then I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to explode it, and I'm going to get rid of this smaller line. You see how it highlights multiples? I'm just going to get rid of this line there, so we don't have two lines on top of each other we don't need. Click here, and then I can, oops, click here, shift, click here, left to right select, and I can move these two in tandem. So that's just kind of how to move around the shape. All right, and then I'm going to do another little circle just like for a little gleam in its eye. And then I'm going to do kind of a scary kind of eyebrow. So I'm going to kind of like just kind of like pull this and twist it up right there. And then I'm going to make an offset of this so that I can add thickness. Right now it's just a line. Can't just have a line. It's got to have some thickness. So just offset curve or just offset by itself. I'm going to do 3 millimeters. I'm going to do it this way. 3, enter, click. That offsets it. And then I'm going to draw a circle just because I want to make this rounded at the ends here. So I'll draw a circle. And I'm going to go with a 2-point circle. There to there. There. Oops. And then enter again. Brings up the same command. Hit 2, enter, click from there to there. And that gives me my circle here. Okay, then we got to trim out the sections here. So trim, select these two, enter, and then trim out that section right there and right there. Okay, so we've got the eye shape that we want. I kind of mess with it a little bit more. Still have that space right there, which is nice. Oh, and I did have to rebuild this part, so let me just delete that extra curve there. So this line goes that way. Perfect, perfect. Okay, we got this. All one piece, all one piece, all one piece. All right, perfect. So next we move it back into position to mirror it over. Okay, so now we mirror it to the other side. Select the objects to mirror. Oops. Mirror. And then we go 0, enter, and with ortho on or hit shift to put ortho on, we click. Great. So now let's go ahead and left to right select these and project them onto the object. Great. Now we're going to hide these objects. So change object layer to hide those. Didn't see them hide because, oops, I hid the wrong ones. Those are the ones I projected. Okay, hide these ones. And then, of course, we got to delete the eyes off the back of the head because we don't want to accidentally split those and ruin the mesh. Cool. So now we need to add some topology to this, or some actual depth to these features. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to split the object with the projected on curves. So split this object, enter with this one. Oops. Split this object, enter with that, and left to right select that, control shift or control click if you accidentally grab anything. Yeah, there we go. And then enter. Okay, so that now splits these into individual little sections that I can come through and offset to make modifications. And I'm going to go ahead and go to edit here and select objects, curves, and now any curves that are on here I'm going to put onto this layer so they're hidden. Now when we look at it in rendered, you can see why we're doing this. It looks completely flat, right? So now we need to add the facial features. So let's do that. So I'm going to go offset surface, enter. And first I'm going to start with the eyebrows because this is going to be the easiest to visualize why we're doing certain steps. So select those two, enter. I'm going to do a distance of 2 millimeters. So 2, enter, enter. Okay. And if you're 3D printing this thing, you might even want to make it more dramatic than that because 2 millimeters, if you print it to scale, I don't know the exact scale of this object, it'll be fine. But if you end up scaling it down or anything like that, they're going to disappear. So maybe 3 millimeters would be better. Let's go ahead and do that. So offset 3, enter, enter. Okay, just a little bit more depth there. Great. So now we want to make this thing watertight. It's easier to explain with the eyebrows than it is with the eyes when we get into that. So basically, if I look at this thing, move it back here, you can see that there's holes right there. And you can also see that this has a back on the objects here. So the objects are, let's look at it, maybe not in this. Let's look at it in monochrome. First time you change it into monochrome, it always takes a bit. So it'll show you all of the edges. So this has a back to it. That does not. That's hollow on the inside. So we need to actually go through and extract these surfaces off the back of the object here and delete them so that we can create an edge-to-edge connection between this and the rest of the body. Basically, we always call it a watertight solid in 3D design, basically meaning if you were to cut a hole in the top of it and cut a hole in the top of the object and pour water in it, it would fill out all of the little crevices, including the inside of these eyebrows, which it's not right now. So we're going to go ahead and extract those surfaces and delete them to create open surfaces there. Okay. But I got to undo this because I moved that. There we go. Oops, let's redo. There we go. Redo my offset there. So let's go on the inside here. So I'm going to select this object and go Z, enter, S, enter to zoom on the selected object. That's a really underrated tool that helps out quite a bit. And again, I'm going to switch back into shaded here and extract surfaces. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but hopefully you can visualize it a little bit. And then if I hit delete, you can see now that you can see the inside and the outside, it would fill with water. Okay, same principle allows you to join these objects together. So we've done Boolean unioning plenty. That's where you have two objects like two spheres overlapping each other and you make them one piece, just like the picture looks like. But joining is actually edge to edge, and that's why those two puzzle pieces that fit together are going together. So since we made this a watertight solid, we can join it and those edge-to-edge unions will make this all one piece. And that's what we want. If that's working the way you've got all of the edges off the right way. Sometimes at this point, people have duplicate objects on top of each other. You might also go into Edit here and go to Select Objects and look for duplicate objects. And if anything highlights, just hit Delete, because that will be an object that already exists that you don't need two of. Okay, next let's do the eyes. So same principle. Offset surface, I'm going to do this surface and this, that surface, enter. I'm going to flip all, and I'm going to do 4 millimeters, 4, enter, enter. And we don't see any change because we flipped them inside, so you're looking at the outside, okay? So now if I go over here, go to extract surface, select this object, this object, this object, and that one. Then come over here, click, click, enter, delete. Now you can see inside of it. All right, so let's look at it and rendered again. Great. But of course, we still don't have, like, we need an offset for the eyeball itself, because we can't even see that right now, right? That's where it gets a little bit more complicated. So these are watertight. This whole thing is watertight right now, but we want to add a little bit more detail. So let's go ahead and do that with switching to shaded, offset surface, that one, and that one, flip all, and this time we're going to do 2. 2, so it's a little bit less. Okay. And that's where things are going to get a little bit more complicated, because it's not going to work the same way. If I extract the surfaces like I did last time, and then hit delete, you'll see that, yeah, it worked fine for the pupil, or I guess the reflection of the light, or whatever that's going to be right there. But it didn't work so great for this area here, because we have an extra surface there. So we've got to do a couple of tricks to get those split out. So let me go ahead and do this. Select both of these parts and then go to shaded, and we're going to go ahead and isolate them. So I can click up here as well and go to that spot if I don't want to use the center mouse click. All right. So we've got a couple of issues. We've got one, we've got like 2 layers on top of each other. So let's go, and we need to keep the part that has the back, because this we still need. So let's go ahead and look at it this way. Z enter, S enter to zoom on the selected. Let's explode this one. Actually, let's isolate this one first. So isolate, center mouse, click. Okay. Then I'm going to explode this and delete these edges here that I do not need. Then let's go ahead and click. And now I'm going to go to bring back selected. Whoops. Come on. This one's show objects. Okay. This one. Oops, actually, let's hide it again. Hide. Show. Selected. Okay, and then you just select the one you want to show, which I want to show this. Enter. Okay. So now I got both of those. I got rid of the curves that were attached to this part. Now let's go ahead and join all this stuff back together again. Join. Okay. And then we need to split this object with this object. Enter. And it did not work. Sometimes you got to explode this one too. Explode. Just so I can just join together the segments that I'm talking about. Sometimes it helps because these little edges become problems. Join. Split this object with this object. Enter. And then we get what we want. To get rid of that. Okay. Now we've got all of these segments are edge to edge perfect. I should be able to just join this whole thing back together. all one piece, and then bring back our eye. And we can see we've got all of our parts fitting in nicely there. Okay, and then join this part of the eye too. And I've got some curves that are still showing up here. Let me go to Edit, select Objects, Curves, and then hide them. Change Object Layer. Okay, so you don't have to deal with those. All one piece. Beautiful. So now when we look at it in rendered, you'll see that the eye sticks out, it sits down perfectly. Okay, cool. So back over here, back to shaded. And now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing to this one. So it's nice that we're going to be able to have another opportunity to look at this together because it was a little complicated, I know. So that's why I didn't do it both at the same time. Let's do it again. Okay. Again, we've got two edges on top of each other. We've got this object has this edge on it that we have to get rid of. This object has that same part that we have to get rid of, but it also has the back part that we need to keep. And so that's why we're doing it this way. So first, I'm going to explode this, and I'm not hiding it, but I'm just going to delete the parts, and you'll see there's that part, and then there's this part. I'm getting rid of the thinner part that was attached to the center of the eye. Delete. Okay, that leaves us with this piece that we need. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and join back together this part of the eye. So it's going to be my cutting blade, so I can trim out this section here. So now, because this is all one piece, there's this weirdness where these two corners go edge to edge right here, and sometimes CAD programs have a problem with that. That's why we need to explode this, so it breaks it all into little pieces, and then we join just the section together that we're going to cut out. Join that together. So we have a simple cutting edge that lines right up with our other object. So now we split this object, enter with this object. So now we have that little part we just trim out. Beautiful. Join all this back together. Oops, I'm missing that little corner. Join. Okay. Bring everything back. I don't know why I have this little edge here. I'll just delete it. I don't need it. Looks fine. Do I have that on the other side? I do, don't I? That's weird. Explode. Delete. And now we can join the whole thing together. Okay. So now if I click on it and hit delete, everything disappears. That means I've got all of the exploded pieces rejoined together just like they should be. Now I'm going to hit save, Control S for save. Yes, we'll save it just to make sure that we don't mess it up anymore. Okay, and then we're going to do the last step here, which is to copy the beak, Control C. And then we're going to Boolean union this whole thing together. So we copied that to the clipboard so I can put it on the sub D layer, because now we're going to turn the beak into a NURBS-based object as well. Okay. So now it's all one piece. Great. This can be 3D printed. It's ready to go. Except for maybe the last little step. Do we want to put feet on it? You know what? We could put feet. Well, the feet would be the same principle as the wings. If you wanted to do the feet, you can do them. But this is going to be floating on water. And a lot of times, rubber duckies don't have feet. So I'm going to skip it just to make this tutorial less long. Same principles as the wings, though. You know, cones and offsets and whatnot. Okay, great. So let's now look at it in rendered. That's our mean looking duck. I like it. Okay, so the last thing we want to do is actually go to a right view here, and we want to cut the bottom flat just because flat things print better. So I'm going to draw a line just all the way across here and then split. Or actually we can use the new tool in Rhino 8 here. So let's go to shaded here. And I'm going to use the cut. And I'm going to hold down shift and it'll go both sides. And so now it just cut off this bottom, and it did not cap it for us. So we got to go cap. And because it's flat, we got a nice flat bottom there. And so that's going to actually be really nice for 3D printing because it'll adhere to the print bed better if it's got a flat bottom on it. All right, so that's our duck. The next step will be to add materials. Hopefully you enjoyed this modeling portion. See you on the next one.